you know why we're here. So if you got any doubts or reservations, now is the time to say so. No one will think any less of you. Because once you enter this family, there's no getting out. This family comes before everything else. Everything. Before your wife and your children and your mother and your father. It's a thing of honor. Then God forbid, if you get sick or something happens and you can't earn, we'll take care of you, because that's part of it.
If you've got a problem, you just gotta let somebody know. This man right here, he's like your father. It doesn't matter if it's with somebody here or on the outside. You bring it to him, he'll solve it.
You stay within the family.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Sopranos 10th Anniversary Series Finale Special. I'm your host, Walter Frith. Today's date is June 10th, 2017, and the final episode of The Sopranos, which was entitled Made in America, which won the Emmy Award for writing, I might add, was aired on this date on June 10th, 2007. And I want to dedicate this entire segment to the memory of James Gandolfini, who passed away in 2013 at the age of 51, as well as many other members of the show who have passed on, such as Nancy Marchand, who played Tony's mother. She passed away in 2000. Now, the first thing I want to tell you about this mini documentary that I've made is there are spoilers contained here. If you've never seen The Sopranos before, I urge you to turn this off, watch the series, come back, and watch this again, because I will be taking you through many plot points on the show leading up to what was inevitably the death of Tony Soprano. To say I'm a fan of the show is an understatement. Sopranos, complete DVD box set Blu-ray. This is a book I bought a long time ago, a little while after the show ended, and it takes you through basically a lot of the show's characters, plot points. It has a lot of great pictures from the show, etc., etc. And as you can see over here, one of my biggest statements to popular culture for the show is this wonderful wall hanging that I picked up maybe about 7 or 8 years ago, sometime around 2009, 2010. And there's the Sopranos cast. If we start at the end over here, Dominic Chianese as Uncle Junior, Lorraine Bracco as Dr. Jennifer Melfi, James Gandolfini as Tony Soprano, Edie Falco as Carmela Soprano, Nancy Marchand as Livia Soprano, Tony's mother, Stephen Van Zandt as Silvio Dante, Tony Sirico as Paulie Walnuts, or Paulie Galtieri, as it probably says on his driver's license, and Michael Imperioli as Christopher Maltasante. Now, the interesting thing about The Sopranos is that the timeline of the show actually goes back all the way to 1996. Now, the show first aired on January 10th, 1999, and aired its last episode on June 10th, 2007. The pilot was filmed in 1997, and one of Meadows' soccer games that she's at, it's a championship, there's a banner up behind. It says 1996 finals, all girls finals, something like that. So the timeline of the show actually goes back that far. Now, The Sopranos is an amazing show that it won 21 Emmy Awards, including six Emmy Awards for writing. It won an Emmy Award for every single season it was on, except for season 2. Now, the way the show was structured in the final season, as it is so often done now, is they referred to the show as The Sopranos Season 6, of which there were 12 episodes, and then The Sopranos Season 6 Part 2, for which there were 9 episodes. I call that Season 7. For the purposes of discussion, the show technically was on in 7 different installments. So if you hear me say Season 7, it means Season 6 Part 2. Now, going back to the first season of The Sopranos, the first episode to win an Emmy for writing was College, where Tony takes his daughter off to look at colleges in Maine, and he runs across the old mob informant who ratted on everyone, and Tony has to deal with it. Season 2 did not win any Emmy Awards for writing, but James Gandolfini did win his first Emmy Award for Best Actor in a Drama Series. Season 3's Emmy Award for writing was the episode Employee of the Month, in which Dr. Melfi is raped, and she knows that if she wants to, she can have the rapist dealt with at the hands of Tony. And of course, her moral fiber is intact, and she decides not to do anything. And it is unfortunate because the police bungled the case, and the rapist had to be let go in that on a technicality. So that really was too bad. Season 4's Emmy Award for writing is the finale that year of Whitecaps, where Tony and Carmela ponder buying a house down by the Jersey Shore, and their marriage falls apart when Tony's ex-girlfriend, the little Russian, calls the house and causes pandemonium, and Carmela wants out of the marriage. The Season 5 Emmy for writing was Long-Term Parking, where Adriana, Christopher's longtime girlfriend, meets her demise. The Season 6 Emmy Award for writing is the first episode that season where Uncle Junior shoots Tony, members only. And the last Emmy Award the show won, I mentioned it at the beginning, was Season 7, the very last episode, Made in America. That won the Emmy Award for writing. And if you want to go back all the way to many parts of the show, David Chase started thinking about the finale about 2.5 years before it actually was done in the end. Now, here's something I'm going to say, and then I'm going to back up what I have to say with evidence. I'm going to kind of jump around a bit like they sometimes do on TV shows. Flashbacks back to the present, flashbacks back to the present. Okay, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, Tony Soprano is dead. And if you piece the show together at various points, you will see that a point from this episode, a point from that episode, all around, Tony Soprano is dead. And I will back up what I have to say with detailed facts. David Chase was asked shortly after the show went off the air if Tony Soprano was dead. His answer was, everything is there in the finale, go back and look at it. He neither confirmed or denied that Tony was dead. After James Gandolfini passed away in 2013, he was asked a short time after that, much like the Beatles were asked, are you ever going to get back together? Are you ever going to get back together? This was a question that lingered and lingered and lingered. And people asked David Chase again, is Tony Soprano dead? And this time he said no. Now that was quite cagey because you could never come back with The Sopranos since James Gandolfini was gone. There could be no reunion show. There could be no movie. So it was easy of David Chase to say that. And I think the reason he did was he wanted to keep the show's memory alive. And I will return back to that after I make a few other points about the show. Now, the clip you saw there just before we started here was from the Season 3 episode, Fortunate Son, where Christopher Moltisanti and Eugene Pontecorvo become maid guys at the famous ceremony that they have. Now, the character of Eugene Pontecorvo is somewhat important in the finale of the show, in the last season overall. He's played by an actor named Robert Funaro. And I want you to keep this in mind when I get to my detailed explanation at the end, to keep you guessing as we go along here. Think about the members-only jacket. And I will return to that point in a moment. Now, one of the reasons I love The Sopranos so much is because, unlike cinema, where you have The Godfather and Goodfellas, The Godfather is a white-collar look at organized crime, and Goodfellas is a blue-collar look at it. And there's lots of violence, and there's lots of music, and there's lots of operatic things going on, such as in Godfather 1, where We see Michael commit the murders of the members of the 5 families, cut together with the baptism. Then we go back to Godfather 3. Michael is wiping out all his enemies, cross-cut with the famous opera that his son is in. And in Goodfellas, we have the old soundtracks of the old songs, and we have basically the F word used every other minute or so. And Michael Ballhouse's cinematography in that, controlled by Martin Scorsese, just is in a frenzy the whole time. And they do what they're supposed to do. They show you the mob done through the eyes of cinema, where everything has to be jazzed up. The Sopranos is not like that. The Sopranos is even-keeled, and it looks like everyday life, where these people incorporate organized crime and the ordinary activities of their everyday life together. And in fact, the tagline for the show was even, if one family doesn't get them, the other one will. And that was referring, of course, to Tony Soprano. Now, let's go back and look at the demise of Tony Soprano. The first thing I want you to remember is I said to you, David Chase had the series finale put together in his head about 2.5 years before. That's a lot of planning. That's a lot of planning. Now, what did we see in the very last episode? The very last thing we saw was the screen cutting to black. Millions of people watched that and thought that their cable had gone down. In reality, Tony had died at that moment. And the reason he did starts in the first episode of season 6, called Members Only. In that episode, Eugene Pontecorvo, the character played by Robert Funaro, he's wearing a members only jacket in that episode at many points. And we see him murder a guy in a pizza parlor over an unpaid debt. This jacket comes into play many times, and the jacket is worn in the final episode, Made in America, the very last episode of The Sopranos, where Tony is seen in the diner with his family. A lot of people walk in. There's a camera shot of all of them. And we see this guy walk in with a members-only jacket. He sits at the table at the bar, and at several points we see him turn around and look over at Tony's table. We not only see him look over at Tony's table, where the camera is just on him, but we see the Sopranos at their table, and you can see him in the background, out of focus, constantly looking over at them like this. And this goes on 2 or 3 times on the show. I want you to go back to the first episode of season 7, called Sopranos Home Movies. That's the episode where Tony and Carmela go up to spend some time with Bobby and Janice up at Bobby's cottage in the woods. Bobby gives Tony an assault rifle for his birthday. It's Tony's 47th birthday. Tony Soprano lived from 1960 to 2007. And when he gives Tony that assault rifle, later on we see Tony and Bobby in a boat on the water. They're talking about life and death and how, in most cases, guys in that business usually end up dead or in the can. Bobby says to Tony, when it comes to the moment of death, being killed by a gun at point-blank range, you probably don't even hear it when it happens, meaning you're dead before you can hear the shot of the gun. Okay, I want you now to go forward to the second last episode of the entire series, called The Blue Comet. Everybody goes down in that episode. Bobby gets killed. Silvio is left brain dead, although the doctors in that episode don't think he'll regain consciousness. Now, Tony has to scramble with what's left of his men, his top soldiers, his top lieutenants. He has to retreat to a safe house. And the last scene that we view before the very last episode is Tony in a safe house with his men downstairs guarding him. Tony is upstairs in a bedroom. He goes in, closes the door. He's got the assault rifle with him that Bobby gave him in Soprano Home Movies. Tony sits on the edge of his bed for a moment, and we see a brief flashback to when Bobby said to him, you probably don't even hear about it when it happens. And then we have the final episode, the final scene, where the man in the members-only jacket keeps looking over at Tony, and then he makes his way to the men's room. The scene goes on for a few more seconds, and then all of a sudden, we cut to Tony just as Meadow comes walking into the restaurant, and Tony is seated there in front of Carmela and Anthony, and the scene goes to black, which meant that the killer came out of the bathroom and shot Tony probably in the head at point-blank range in front of his family. Now, the only other mild deviation from this that I would accept is if he had shot AJ first. AJ is younger, stronger, more likely to jump up and try and snatch the gun. Don't forget, we see Tony. The camera is on Tony's face, and then it goes black. If we see Tony's face here, and AJ is sitting in front of him here, that means that seeing Tony is AJ's point of view. He may have gotten killed first. Then Tony, then maybe Carmela and Meadow. However, mob tradition states that families are never touched. But a lot of people went down in the series finale, including the boss, Phil Leotardo of the New York family, who instigated the whole thing from the beginning, declared war on the Sopranos, and one of the top three guys, Tony, Silvio, and Bobby, taken down, and it cost him his life in the process as well. Now, the actor who played the man in the final episode, who wears the members-only jacket, is a man by the name of Paulo Calandrea. Now, he signed papers with David Chase and the show to not disclose what happens in the series finale. So that tells you something. And the last thing I want to say on this is, if you don't believe Tony Soprano is dead, I respect that. You have the right to believe whatever you want to believe. None of us know absolutely 100% for sure. But I think I've given a pretty solid case, a pretty convincing case, as to why Tony Soprano is dead. Now, listen carefully then on this last point that I want to make. If Tony Soprano didn't die, what is the point of the last scene? What is the point of it? This landmark show, this golden age of television, led by this show, greatest show ever in the history of television as far as I'm concerned. What is the point of the final scene? That the Sopranos went out for dinner. And that's it. We're not supposed to believe anything else. And that final cut to black would mean nothing. That wouldn't be the way to end it, because it wouldn't make any sense other than the fact that Tony had indeed died. So there you have it, my take on the Sopranos series finale, this being the 10th anniversary of it, June 10th, 2017. And I hope the show lives on for many more years, and people are talking about it in another 10 years from now, and that a whole new generation of fans can watch this show and appreciate it as much as we have. Thanks.